Hi guys, and welcome to a view of my desk you might not have seen before. In this video I'm going to attempt to make some kind of crashed spaceship out of trash.
Scruffy Crow.
So I'm a week into the challenge that James from JH Miniatures set me, and I haven't started. I mean, this is it. It's where I've got to. I've decided I'm probably going to put it on a base. I don't keep as much stuff as I used to, but I've got some few bits here. I've got some old pump clip backs, some sprue. I've got a whole bunch of stuff. I've changed all the lights in my house, so I've got a whole bunch of stuff from light fittings. I've got some aluminium tube with an interesting little shape on it. Some square things, some mesh. These are the ends of tubes of No More Nails, I think. So I thought they could be interesting. I've got a dropper bottle that I've never used. It's not technically trash, but I don't know. Maybe it'll be becoming useful. Old pen. Another thing that might not technically count as trash, we've got some of these tubes. These were from Poundland a while back. I've used these in a few projects. They've got like oil tube, sort of, I don't know, vent vibes about them. More sprue, and yeah. I do have a massive box of trash, and I'm going to have another dig through, because I'm still not entirely sure where I'm going to go with this lot. One of the first questions is how big we want this thing to be. I've got some drinks cans here, Pringles tube. So I've got a lot of cylinders, all sorts of cylinders. So the ship's going to be mostly cylinder shapes. And part of me was thinking maybe these could make quite interesting engines. We could work with something like this, put a nice cockpit on it, add some engines out the back. Could be an interesting sort of set of shapes. But is that huge? That is huge. That would make an interesting centerpiece. Or do we take that all down a notch, and then we have something based on a smaller cylinder, tubes like this, and then maybe we could add wings or something like that. So yeah, I think you can see how kind of clueless I am and how I'm going to try and sort of figure this out. My idea is to sort of work out what the spaceship would look like as a whole, and then kind of crash it. That's kind of what I'm thinking. So I'm going to keep pouring through this trash until we've got something that looks a little bit spaceshipy. Okay, so I've been having a play with the hot glue gun. I've also been getting liberal use out of my little saw here with quite a thick old blade on it, hacking through stuff. Giving up with the tin can idea. It's all a bit too flimsy. So far, I've got this. It's got a bit of a Star Trek vibe about it, but also very Mad and Flash Gordon. So this is the back end. So this is two of the light fittings. I've hot glued these together. Everything's just hot glued together at the moment. And then we've got a light fitting sat up on some pump clips. We've got the ends on there. So this is the main sort of pilot capsule, and I'm going to put this about here. So I'm regretting gluing these together. The hot glue's did a particularly good job of getting them together. But basically I'm going to cut the metal bars at that sort of angle and have them disappear into there. And then we're still going to need some sort of pod for the front, sort of a cockpit. So I'll have to figure out something for that. The weapon mount will go on one of these. I think we'll go for the smaller one at the top. So there was the name of the ship. It's probably going to be called Delta. And then I decided to finish the look off. So I'm going to have a little pod at the front. I'm going to feel like I need some wings. Sort of starting about here, like a triangle wing, a swept back look, and then with the pod on the front. I think that's where we're going to more or less leave it for the design, the shape. Then we have to work out some guns and cover it in gubbins. So for the wings, I've got a few different bits and pieces. I've got a near unlimited supply of beer mats. I've got a whole bunch of different shapes, but they're all about the same. It's about 1 mil thick, nice hardboard, but it's got a bit of a texture to it. Same, I've got varying bits of corrugated card. This is quite good for crafting with normally, but it's cardy. I've got a small bit of this metal that I don't know where it came from, but I've used that in the past for various sort of more sci-fi type stuff, for like a beaten metal effect. I'm not going to rule it out for this project, but it's not what I need for the wings, I don't think. Thankfully, I also have this. No idea where it came from, but it's like sign card. It's also about 1 mil thick. It's quite stiff, so I think I found my wings. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw out a design on these, and then I'm going to need something to make it thick enough. So I'll just put some sort of filler material in, about a centimetre or 2. And we'll get it so it fits the edge of here, and then we can glue it on, and then we'll just make an edge piece out of something to edge the wing off, and then we can add wires and greebles to that. Okay, I just get out of the shower and I smell of citrus and eucalyptus. Initially I wrote this bottle off because it's not very symmetrical on the bottom, and that's the end I was looking at. I was thinking that's not going to be much use for anything. But while I was just looking at it just now, with my current build in mind, I think right here, at this sort of angle, that's our cockpit. Something along the lines of that. Okay, so this is where I'm leaving it for tonight. I've attached that. We've got some hot glue around the outside, and I found some milliput. I'm going to sort of give this some nice clean sci-fi lines, make that all one beautiful piece. I'm also going to need my Dremel, I've discovered, to get these nice curves on here, because actually this is a little bit tougher. It took me a little bit too long with my saw, but it's not a decent time of the night to be firing up the Dremel at the moment. And on the back here, we'll get some nice curves, blend those all in, make this all a bit more sci-fi, and then get those two bits put together. As for the wings, I've been having a few little plays, keep it a little bit secret for now, but I think I'm going to go with a swept forward design, something along the lines of that, and we'll keep it about the thickness of this tube, which will allow me to pop these tubes in the end there, just for a little bit of added detail. But for my first session on this, I'm pretty happy that I've actually got something that I think could end up looking pretty cool, because I was a bit nervous about this whole project, having not done this sort of thing very often and not for a while. I used my Dremel to carve down the back of the ship. Not the neatest in the world because this metal's quite tough, but enough to get it to sit nicely on there. I also use the measurements that I drew out on my cutting mat, 1:1 scale, to make the first wing template. So I already know this all looks good with these wings. So I just need another 3 of these. So I've got tops and bottoms for all the wings in this nice thick shiny cardboard. As I said, I used the original, and now we have 4. So that gives me 2 sets of 2. My wings. My hot glue gun should have warmed up now, so I'll be able to get these nacelles on. Okay, to complete the wing, I've cut some strips of 1 centimetre card from the same card, and I've just glued that 0.5 centimeters in from all these lines, just to give me this little gap, and then I've sort of sandwiched the top back on. I'm having a bit of trouble. I don't think I've got this back bit on perfectly straight. I've had a bit of trouble cutting to apply for that, because on one side it looks right, one side it doesn't. But that is a one wing on, and that is to get an idea of what the whole thing is going to look like. That is the sort of final shape silhouette. We'll just mark in a 0.5 centimeter inside the shape. And then we'll glue the strips of card on. Okay, so there's all the cardboard laid on the second one. And I've got a bead of glue around the top. And I just need to press the two sides together. And then I'm just going to stick a nice big lump of glue down the bottom here. And then run glue both down sides of the cardboard, a bit more there. And we'll be able to just pop that on. And just for security, I'm going to run external beads of glue down the bottoms and in all the gaps. Get that all nicely stuck together. But there we have the basic silhouette. I have my ship. So I'm going to, next up, I'm going to use the Milliput to sort of blend all these parts together. Okay, I've used a massive chunk of Milliput. We've got something coming here. I've put some cardboard details down the side of the cockpit, smoothed them in a little bit. Still some more work to do there. Smooth the top of the cockpit into the main body, and we've smoothed the wings into those two bars. We'll try and keep the insides of the bars like nice, clean machine curved. We've smoothed all these insides out so that all looks like one piece. So we're going to have to go around and smarten all this up. I've not spent as much time on the bottom because I think we're going to have this thing crashed. I'm going to crash it sort of like that, and you'll not really see the bottom, I don't think. So I'm still happy with the wings. I'm going to do a lot more work on them apart from detailing them. So yeah, it's now one big firm heavy spaceship now. I'm pretty happy with it so far. So I'm going to have to wait for all this to dry. I think I'm going to put another layer on and then sand it all back. Okay, it is the Saturday before the Monday deadline for getting this finished, and we've barely got anywhere. I'm not happy with how smooth the top of these wings are, so I'm going to try and find my wood filler and try and smooth those perfectly flat so they sort of have a constant gradient from sort of there right down to the wings. So once again, I'm not going to worry too much about the bottom, which kind of going to let that sort itself. We're also going to start detailing, so I need to detail up this cockpit. I want to separate this bit off so it looks like it sort of opens up almost, and do the front. And I'm going to work out some sort of design for the tops of the wings out of the same card they're made out of, and just sort of stick those on. So we'll start 0.5 centimeter out, so to match underneath there, and I'll sort of work out a sort of geometric style design with some sort of spaces in like that. And we'll cut out all the pieces we need, and then when I've got that all nice and smooth like I want, I can put them down and we'll get sort of a nice design. I might do some for the top as well to make them look like sort of plates. But I mean, I've got these tubes which fit in there quite neatly, so if I use that as the base of a gun, it will pivot round almost a little bit too much, but I could do something about that maybe, or try and find a slightly wider tube of some sort. So these are from these sort of crazy straw things. What I could do is I could open out this hole a little bit bigger, then I could get one of the ends of the rubber ends of the straw thing in there, and then we could have the tube in there which would pivot, and that would give me a nice little grip on it so it wouldn't fall out, but I could still move it around. Okay, so I've got the filler on. I've kind of come up with the design I liked for the wings, but I've kind of covered it in filler again now. Hopefully I'll be able to see it well enough to cut out the right pieces. We've done some of the more work on the cockpit. Everywhere's got filler. I've never noticed this stuff had a smell before, but it does. Apparently I just never used enough in one go. Okay, so I was really stuck for guns for this thing until I remembered something I saw from a Gaslands tutorial a while back to make something a bit like this. So all this is a little strip of paper, just with a little dab of super glue on one end. Then we cut the end off a cocktail stick, and we just leave a few mil on the end sticking over the end. It's kind of hard to get started. But then once we get it started, it's quite easy. Just roll that round, that's it, simple as that. I'll make the two match. And then when you've completed it, just another dab of super glue. That's far too much. You can just slice that off. And then you just need a bit of super glue on the ends of them. And I've got two little cannons, so I just need to find something to space those apart. If we just put the seams down, and we can file them actually, because we've got it covered in super glue, that should be fileable. Okay, well. I found the end of a tube from the COVID test actually, all washed and cleaned out. This might work quite well. And then I can actually attach that into the other end of one of those pipe straw thingies. And then use that as the join between that pipe straw thingy and the other one, and we might have something. Let's see if I can finesse that a little bit. How about something a bit like that? I think that's going to be recognisable as cannons once I've just tidied it up a little bit. And they should mount quite neatly on the top of there. Okay, so we said no 3D printed parts, but what this is the supports from 3D prints. And normally I just throw this away. I've used it before for basing, trying to look like rebars. In this case, I'm going to use it in the wings. So I'm just going to pop some super glue in these gaps. I'm going to lay pieces of this down, and then I'll hide the joins between one set of bits of these and the next with just a little bit of card and stuff. And we're just trying to make these look sort of complex and sort of like wiry, like they might serve a sensible purpose. Okay, so it is Sunday night before the Monday deadline, and I think I'm pretty much happy with the ship now. I'm going to have to start getting a move on if I'm going to make the deadline tomorrow. We've smoothed out all the areas I wanted to smooth, I think, and I've added the texture to the top of these, just an extra couple of plates, and we've added a delineation for the sort of pilot thing. We've got the gun on. I've lost the red bits off the back, but I'll stick them on back on in a second. I'm fairly happy with it. It looks spaceshipy. I have at this point seen my competition. I've seen James from JH Minch's entry, and it is much better than mine. But I'm going to keep on going with this. I'm not going to give up. So this is only half the brief. The brief was crashed spaceship. This is the spaceship. This is going to be my crash. So far this is just a bit of old picture frame or something. It's just some hardboard. And I've sort of cut a rough shape round. More or less just the shape I had. I'm going to get a big knife now, and I'm just going to bevel all these edges off. And then I'm going to crash my spaceship at this sort of double 45 degrees. So about 45 and then about 45. Get it properly crashed. To that end, I'm probably going to hack off a good chunk of this bottom section, so it looks like he's well buried in the ground. And then I'm going to build some sort of trench, so he looks like he is hit, shoved, and come to rest, buried in the ground. giving this piece loads of height and just loads of presence, hopefully, on the tabletops. Okay, we've got 2 more bits here that are varying levels of trash. This I use a lot. This is from an old office I used to work at. They were replacing some of the walls and they pulled down, must have been, I don't know, 10 square meters of cork tiles. And this one it looks like I've been using to do some soldering on. But I've got a few of these left over, so I'm going to use some of those. But then this is IKEA heat, just heat mats, cork trivets. I think they're about £3 for 3. They're an excellent source of thick cork. So we've got some thin cork and thick cork. And this is what we're going to use for earth. So we're going to break off chunks like this, and we're going to use those to make the furrow this thing made when it landed. And now I've got my crash site kind of built. We're going to have a furrow for the wing here. I'm also going to build up some of this cork and we'll sort of split it in half, so we've got a flat side and a rough side. Especially on this wing here, it looks like it dug into the dirt a bit. It'll have kicked up a few of these clods. Now to get my wall tiles like this, so we've got like a waxy side and then a rough side that I use for like an earth texture. It takes a little bit of work. Basically I could cover it in some sort of solvent and then scrape off all the glue. That's not going to be necessary for this, so I've got a fresh, brand new ceiling tile that is still annoyingly sticky on one side. That's fine, because we're just going to tear chunks off, because we don't want any of these straight edges. And we're going to use these to make a second layer of dirt and earth going down the sides. And weirdly, for the first time in my life, I've come across something that hot glue doesn't stick to. The sort of waxy surface on the back of these tiles, the glue doesn't want to stick to. You have to kind of let it melt a little bit, I think, and then you can smear the glue on. I've never seen that happen on anything before. Normally hot glue is a surefire way of sticking anything to anything, especially in the short term. Okay, so I had a bit of a panic because my camera ran out of space to film any more video, but we're back. In the meantime, I filled in some of the gaps under here. You don't ever see the bottom again, but just with a bit of glue, make sure everything is nice and sturdy. You can trim any excess off with a knife a bit later. Turns out beveling the edges was a bit of a waste of time. But here we are from the top. Pop some more little fragments on. I think that's got a nice movement to it. I think that looks suitably crashed. I've got a nice wide brush here. And I'm just going to paint PVA on all the cracked earth bits. So I'm going to try and leave the edges where the cork's actually broken. Any of these flat sections I'm going to try and paint. And not forgetting the earth down the middle where we put those drag lines, or at least what we hope are going to look like drag lines. And this is why I'm using a brush rather than sort of cocktail sticks or like a glue spreader, because it means I can get right in here, getting all these little gaps. We don't want any of the texture of the hot glue showing, and we don't want any of the texture of the sort of hardboard showing. They're the main things I want to cover. So yeah, there we go. There's the whole base and some of the ship covered in PVA. That has noticeably added to the weight of this thing. Next up, I'm going to raid this box of turnip 28 type things I've been putting together for some of the roots I collected. These have just been out in my garden. I washed and cleaned up. I've also got some heather and bits of tree here. Should have maybe put these on before I put all the PVA in, but oh, that's some nice good rooty looking bits as well. So yeah, I'm going to sort of embed these into the PVA now. Because if I've learned anything over the last week or so of doing my garden, there's no ground in the world that doesn't have roots in it sticking out, trying to make your life hard. So yeah, if you hadn't guessed already, I'm now going to put sand on all of this. So the sand I usually use is a sort of bird sand. It's got all sorts of interesting bits of shell and some rocks and stuff in it. And I buy it in pretty big bags. But I'm going to need a lot of sand for this project. And to that end, I am outside, and this should be enough sand. So I'm just going to pop him in like I would my normal bird sand, and get plenty of this strewn over the top, get into all those nooks and crannies. And then I'm going to leave that for a while for that all to sort of amalgamate in with the glue, and then we'll dust him off and see what we've got. Okay, it's been 5 minutes or so, so I'm just going to take off as much excess as possible. It's not exactly helped by the fact this sand was a little bit damper than I expected. It's been out here all morning. But there we go, that's it. Look at that, how earthy that looks. And there's a little stripe we did. So yeah, I'm pretty happy with this. I'm going to go and put this somewhere where the sun's going to hit it first thing in the morning, so we can get some paint on. Okay, so here he is, all undercoated. All of a sudden those wings have become that nice one piece that I wanted them to be. A little bit rougher than I'd liked. Another layer of filler and some more sanding might fix that. I've mostly done Halford's Matte Black because that covers everything. So I'm not worried about it flaking off any of these plastic parts. But also then just gone around with a bit of black and hit anywhere that I think would want to be darker. So mostly under here, so if I can't quite get in with my paintbrushes, we're not as worried. And the back engine bar, that's probably the colour it's going to end up being. Might put a little bit of dry brush silver in there, but not a lot. So colour wise, I'm going to keep this pretty simple. The ship itself is pretty much going to be all yellow. I'm going to use some Avalan Sunset and a big brush, and then everything else is going to be shades of brown, and I'll use sort of craft paints for that. Okay, so we have a yellow spaceship now. So if I turn this light on, it looks any better. Yeah, I was very close to running out of this. It started to dry up a bit, so I've been using the chunky remnants to get that down very thin down, a couple of layers. It doesn't have to be the neatest thing because I'm going for more of a Firefly Star Wars look than a Star Trek look at any point with this. This is always going to have been a pretty ropey looking ship, and obviously made all the worse of the fact that it has recently crashed. Got some bright yellow here as well, and what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to mix these together and give this a bit of a sort of dry brush once it's dried with the bright yellow to try and like make it all pop. And here we are, even more yellow. So I'm more or less going to keep the yellow paint job there. Next up, I'm going to get all the brown, do a first layer of that, and that'll give me a really good idea of what I'm looking at as a whole. Okay, so I've gone around, tidied up those edges in the black, and then I've got my dabby spongy brush and just some black paint, and we've picked out the some scorch marks on the edge of these panels. I've done some drags across the top, try and give the whole thing some movement. Dabbed everywhere where I want there to be damage or just, yeah, sort of scorch mark type effects. Like on this engine here, that's a little bit too harsh maybe still. I can just sort of dab that out. And then, as I said, we've neatened up those. And then on the bottom of the wing here, we've got more drag marks. Now currently there's a lot of extra paint on here right now. So much extra paint since I started doing this that what was already a weighty piece is actually even weightier. So I'm going to leave it for now. I've got pretty much all the colours blocked out apart from the windshield. All I need to do now is go around with some silver, and I'll be adding this to the battle damaged parts and into the wings, into these sort of whatever these little pointy bits are. Just sort of bring them out. And then I'll sort of dry brush a few layers of different colours on all the mud sections Oh, one last thing before I do go and leave it for an hour or two. It's going to be some... this is Army Painted Dark Tone. I think there might be a bit of leftover Null Oil in here as well. And I'm going to use this on some of these panel lines. I'm going to sort of dip it in like I'm doing here, and then we're going to sort of wipe a lot of it off. And this is going to give me some extra grime and dirt in some of these places and make this look really grubbed up. And all of this weathering, this is really what it is to do, is just to hide how shoddily I made the ship. We're going to weather away, so when we have the complete thing, you don't see, you know, the wonky sides. You don't see that it is just made out of trash and cardboard. It actually will look like I'm trying to bed it into reality a little bit. Okay, I can see the end liner thing. I've weathered it all. I've added the silver, and I've done the first highlight on the base. So we're getting kind of close. Annoyingly though, I've just spilt silver paint everywhere. And normally I try and scoop some of that back into the pot, but this desk's so messy at the moment that it would just make more mess, I think. So let's just tidy that up, put it away, which is what I should have done when I was done with it. Annoyingly, I also got some of it on my model, but I can cover that back over and give this thing the third highlight on the sand. I think, apart from the windscreen, the ship is done. Okay, so the paint spill wasn't anywhere near as the fact that I forgot to unscrew the top on my PVA, and I've just spilt that everywhere. I'm really not having much luck. This is a cursed build. But while I've got some PVA out, I'm just sticking some tufts on to the edges of my earth to make it look like this guy's pushed all the grass out the way as he's crashed. So we might as well use the glue that's out. There we go, stick that on. I've also got some of these red, I've got some random dried tufts here, left over from other projects. Let's grab some of those on. I've got some of these red flowers. They don't really fit my Oathmark project, so I've kind of been not using them. But there's no reason why they don't go quite nicely with this. So we'll stick some flowers here and there as well. And I've got a replacement sheet of A3 here. And then a scrubby old brush. And we're going to get plenty of PVA, and we're going to daub on where we want some grass. So we definitely want some grass up on these, because I think it adds to the sort of almost comedy value of the whole thing. And for doing a big project like this, I've got this wooden scenics, just a massive jar. I got cheap ones. There's a generic green grass. If you had a static glass applicator now, would be a good time to use it, but I don't, so I'm going to put some out there. So I'm sprinkling some on, and then I'm going to do my pinch technique anywhere that's a little bit more hard to get to, that needs a little top up, and then shake all that off, and we should have some green grass that has been disrupted by this crash landing. Okay, and then I said I've tried to use some of the imperfections that were in the windscreen already and try and turn them into sort of cracks. I think I've kind of pulled that off to a certain extent, and I am going to call that finished. So let's see if we can get some nice photos. And as I'm looking at the final thing, I think it's come out pretty nicely actually. As I am finishing recording this, it is about a week later and the results are officially in. And it looks like I just pulled into the lead. So the polls on both mine and JH Miniatures channels, plus the one on the Super Cheap Wargaming group went my way. But the one on the Trash Bash International Facebook group, another cool group that I wasn't aware of before actually, went towards JH Miniatures. But overall, win to me, which I'm actually quite surprised by, because he spent a lot more time sort of planning out his build, and I think it's actually a far more quality build than mine is. I definitely recommend going over to JH Miniatures channel, the link will be in the description, and checking out his stuff. Some really, really good content there. And that's all for this video. Please let me know what you thought down in the comments. Maybe subscribe for more. And as ever, thanks for watching. Bye.